The FIA has just admitted it made a major mistake and publicly apologized to Oscar Piastri after the Brazilian Grand Prix. That 10-second penalty may have cost Piastri a podium finish and now threatens to decide the entire 2025 World Championship. After days of silence, the FIA has confirmed what McLaren already knew. Piastri's move on Antonelli wasn't reckless, it was racing. With only 3 races to go and Norris just 24 points ahead, could this FIA apology fuel Piastri's ultimate comeback? Oscar Piastri's Brazilian Grand Prix was turned upside down by a controversial penalty, but just days later, Formula One's governing body did something almost unheard of. The FIA admitted they were wrong. In a stunning post-race statement, the stewards acknowledged that the 10-second time penalty handed to Piastri during the race may not have been justified. For fans, it wasn't just a surprise, it was a moment of validation. For McLaren, it was the confirmation of a weekend stolen by poor officiating. At the time, the penalty seemed excessive. Piastri had gone for a bold move on Mercedes' Kimi Antonelli after a safety car restart, made slight contact, and indirectly triggered a chain reaction that ended Charles Leclerc's race. The stewards didn't hesitate 10 seconds for causing a collision. But the replays told a different story. There was room. There was intent. There was no recklessness. And now, even the FIA agrees, it was a racing incident that should have been reviewed more carefully. That moment cost Piastri more than just track position. It cost him momentum in the Drivers' Championship, momentum he desperately needed with only 3 races left. After serving the penalty in the pits, he dropped from podium contention to the midfield, fighting his way back to P5. It was a gritty drive under pressure, but the damage was done. Had he finished on the podium, the title picture might look very different today. Now, with the FIA's apology on the record, McLaren's outrage has turned into vindication. Team principal Andrea Stella called it a necessary step, but emphasized that acknowledging an error doesn't undo its consequences. And he's right. The points lost in Brazil aren't coming back. In a sport where every single point can decide the world title, this one stewarding decision, later proven wrong, might become the moment the 2025 championship was decided off track, not on it. The standings tell the story. With 3 races to go, Lando Norris leads with 390 points, Piastri sits second with 366, and Max Verstappen follows closely with 341. That's a 24-point gap between the McLaren teammates, a gap that could have been nearly halved had Brazil gone differently. It's still mathematically possible for Piastri to win it all, but now, the pressure is relentless. And perhaps, after this apology, the fire inside him burns brighter than ever. Because now it's personal. It's not just about chasing Norris. It's about proving that a mistake, even one admitted by the sport's highest authority, won't define his season. Piastri heads into Las Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi with a point to prove, a car capable of victory, and a mindset sharpened by injustice. The comeback is alive, and this time, the entire paddock will be watching. Oscar Piastri lined up on the grid in Brazil with a renewed sense of urgency. The championship fight was nearing its final act, and while Lando Norris had the upper hand in points, Piastri knew that one strong weekend could change everything. The McLaren was quick throughout the practice sessions. Qualifying wasn't perfect, but P4 gave him a strong platform to attack and, more importantly, clear air to avoid the chaos often seen at Interlagos. The opening laps were measured. Piastri managed to hold his position through the Senna S and into Turn 4, settling into a comfortable rhythm. But the drama escalated after an early safety car was triggered by Leclerc's contact with a spinning Antonelli. On the restart, with tires cold and field compressed, Piastri saw an opening. Antonelli had left the door slightly ajar into Turn 1. In racing, moments like this separate the bold from the hesitant. Piastri dived for the inside. The contact was slight, but the consequences were massive. Antonelli was pushed wide, trying to avoid further collision, and behind them, Charles Leclerc was squeezed, eventually forced into retirement. The stewards acted fast, perhaps too fast. Just minutes after the incident, Piastri was handed a 10-second time penalty for causing a collision. No further investigation, no wait for full data. It was a snap decision in a moment where the race was still evolving. The problem? The replay angles told a more nuanced story. Piastri's move was aggressive, but within reason, a textbook racing dive into Turn 1. Antonelli didn't fully close the door, and the incident was on the edge of what's traditionally accepted as a hard but fair move. More importantly, telemetry later showed that Antonelli had slightly altered his braking point mid-corner, contributing to the squeeze effect on Leclerc. None of this was considered before the penalty was applied. From McLaren's pit wall, frustration turned into disbelief. Their driver had already lost time from the incident, and now had to serve a harsh time sanction that essentially eliminated him from podium contention. Andrea Stella's radio messages to race control were calm but firm. They requested a review. It was denied. For Piastri, it was a gut punch. In the cockpit, he asked, "Was I supposed to just back out of every move?" He knew the cost. He just didn't expect it to come that quickly and that decisively. And that's what made the FIA's eventual apology so significant. Because in that moment, Piastri wasn't just a young driver trying to fight for a title. He was being told that his instinct, courage, and judgment were wrong when they weren't. The penalty didn't just reshape the race, it reshaped the trajectory of a championship battle. One moment, one decision, and suddenly, the most complete drive of Piastri's season became a recovery mission. As soon as the penalty was confirmed, McLaren's engineering team had to pivot fast. With a 10-second time loss now locked into the race plan, Piastri's target shifted from attack to damage control. The team delayed his first stop, giving him a longer first stint to create enough of a gap to midfield cars before serving the penalty. It was a high-risk, high-efficiency approach and one that demanded absolute focus from Piastri inside the cockpit. He delivered. Despite dirty air, rising tire degradation, and disrupted aero balance from minor contact, Piastri managed the first stint with championship-level composure. He avoided curb damage in Sector 2 and adapted his entry angles through Turn 10 to stabilize lateral load, small details, but crucial in maintaining tire performance across that stint. When the pit window opened, McLaren pulled the trigger. Piastri boxed, took his hard tires, served the full 10 seconds, and emerged just outside the top 10. What followed was arguably one of Piastri's best drives of the season. He didn't overdrive. He didn't panic. Instead, he carved his way through traffic methodically, making clean overtakes on Alonso, Gasly, and Tsunoda in critical DRS zones. His sector times in clean air were within 0.2 of Norris and faster than Verstappen's in parts of the final stint. McLaren kept him informed, giving Delta updates with calm, composed calls. There was no overhype. Just pure execution. Behind the scenes, the garage was tense. The team knew the penalty was questionable. The data was showing that Antonelli's trajectory was unpredictable and that Piastri's throttle modulation had been precise. But in-race appeals aren't part of Formula One's playbook. The engineers did what they could, optimize everything from undercut windows to ERS harvesting on the long straights. The fact that Piastri reached P5 after such a setback wasn't just impressive, it was a statement. And while Piastri stayed focused on the race, the apology from the FIA later that week changed the atmosphere inside McLaren. It validated the car setup, the driver's decision-making, and the strategic team's risk management. More importantly, it gave McLaren momentum heading into the final stretch of the season. Andrea Stella didn't celebrate the apology, but he did acknowledge that this moment could galvanize his young driver heading into the final triple header. Because when a team sees their driver fight back against adversity and when the sport itself confirms that driver was wronged, it creates a psychological turning point. Oscar Piastri left Brazil with fewer points than he deserved, but far more respect than he had coming in. He proved he could carry pressure, deliver pace, and challenge injustice without losing his cool. And that's what champions are made of. The 2025 Drivers' Championship is no longer just a numbers game, it's a psychological war. After Brazil, the standings tightened, but not in the way Oscar Piastri had hoped. Lando Norris leads the pack with 390 points, while Piastri follows at 366, and Max Verstappen looms just behind with 341. That 24-point gap between Norris and Piastri might not sound massive, but in a three-race shootout with only 83 points remaining, every single lost second now feels monumental. And that's exactly what made the Brazil incident so damaging. Had Piastri not been handed that 10-second penalty now publicly recognized as unjust, he likely would have finished second, behind only Verstappen. That alone would have gained him at least 10 additional points, slashing Norris's lead to 14 and giving Piastri control of his destiny. Instead, he leaves Brazil with only a P5 finish and a mathematical hill to climb in Las Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. But this fight isn't just about arithmetic, it's about momentum. Norris has been consistently fast, but he hasn't faced a major setback in recent rounds. Piastri, on the other hand, just survived one of the most mentally taxing race weekends of his career and came out still swinging. Verstappen, ever the predator, is closing quietly, using Red Bull's race pace to stay in striking range. In this triangle, it's Piastri who now has the emotional fuel: rage, vindication, and a point to prove. The next three tracks will test different strengths. Las Vegas favors straight-line speed and braking stability, areas where McLaren has improved but still trails Red Bull. Qatar is high degradation and corner-heavy, where tire management will decide the race. Abu Dhabi? That's always about qualifying and track position. For Piastri, each of these venues offers an opportunity to rewrite the championship narrative, but only if he keeps outscoring Norris. Every point matters. Every lap could tilt the scales. Inside McLaren, this isn't just a title fight, it's a battle of belief. Norris is the veteran, the face of the team, and arguably more established with the engineers. But Piastri has become the team's sharpest weapon under pressure. The way he absorbed Brazil's injustice and still delivered results has earned him serious capital within Woking. McLaren may not say it publicly, but internally, they now see two title-worthy drivers and one of them is still climbing.